What is up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? It is Dyer here, and today I'm showing you guys my 2016 Hyundai Genesis Coupe with the 3.8 V6. I picked this car up about 2 months ago. I'm the second owner. She had 50,000 miles when I picked her up, and I drove to Indiana to get it. Today I'm making a video about why I picked the Genesis Coupe as my first quote-unquote sports car, opposed to other choices in its price bracket. This video is meant for someone who's on the fence about buying a Genesis Coupe or planning out which budget modern sports coupe they want to save for next. I want to start off by talking about my vehicle history, so that way you guys know which perspective I'm coming at this car from. No, I haven't owned a Z06 or anything crazy fast. This is the first car with actual power that I've had, but I did have a 1999 Mitsubishi Galant as my first car. Absolutely loved that four-banger to death. It was an absolute beater, but I beat it to death. It died on me shortly after I got it. I picked it up for like 800 bucks, and it was a great first car. My second car was a 2009 Dodge Charger with the V6, and I loved the rear-wheel drive in the rain with that car. It wasn't fast enough to kick the back end out when it was dry, but if it was wet and I found a nice parking lot, it was so much fun. So I knew I wanted my next car to be rear-wheel drive. And then I also had a 2009 Ford Taurus SHO that I borrowed from my dad when my Charger actually broke down. Surprise, surprise. And I loved the power from that car. It was so much faster than the Charger, and I knew I wanted something with at least 300 horsepower. But all of these cars have been big four-door boats. Not really the Galant, but the Charger and the Taurus were definitely huge, and I hated it so much. I felt like I was driving a truck. So I knew I wanted my next car to be something small and nimble. Stemming off my vehicle history, I'm going to go into my personal preferences just for the car. First of all, my budget had to be between 15 to 20k. That's what I wanted to spend. I ended up on the higher end of that. I wanted it to be fast-ish from the factory. Like I said, at least 300 horsepower. I didn't want a four-door. I needed something small, a coupe, or if it was a four-door, a smaller four-door. It had to be reliable and practical-ish. It's my daily driver for the next 3 years at least. That's when I hope I can pay it off by. And basically, coming off of all these preferences, that led me to looking at 4 or 5 different cars. Mostly the Z platform, Mustangs, BRZs, and the Genesis Coupe. So why did I pick the Genesis, all those other, more common, reputable, and bigger brand platforms? Let's start with the most obvious competitor, the Z platform. It was close. I actually test drove 2 Zs, both the 350 and the 370. They're great cars, but Nissan hasn't changed this car in years, and it shows. The 370 I tested was a 2015, and it felt ancient inside. Not to mention the interior was already starting to show the typical Nissan interior problems. It also had zero visibility and very little storage. So what about Mustangs? Ideally for where I live, Ohio, where there's very little tracks and a lot of highway, the 425 horsepower 5.0 was so tempting it still hurts when I see them today. But that's the issue. I see them every day and everywhere. It's also American, being a JDM fanboy and growing up in Fast and Furious, I wanted something from across the Pacific. I've also always preferred the Mopar cars when it comes to American muscle, but again, I didn't want another boat and the Challenger is just too big for me. Then there's the BRZ. To be honest, I never even really considered this car because of the low horsepower numbers. Like I said, I wanted at least 300 horsepower, and this thing's starting out with 205, and the peak power you can get out of them being 350. I just really couldn't go with this option. So that left me deciding between the 2.0T and the 3.8 Genesis Coupe. This part was tricky because the savings that you get with the 2.0T is immense, and they are so much more common. It actually took me about 3 months of hunting and searching to find this car, and I still had to drive 150 miles to go get it, but it was well worth it. The reasons I didn't go with the 2.0T are simple. Peak power. Once again, I know they're easier to mod, it's bolt-ons, they're super friendly to new people on the scene, but for some reason I have this idea that 500 horsepower is what I need. 500 horsepower out of a rear-wheel drive coupe is what I want, and that is possible with the 2.0T, but it's so much easier with the 3.8 as long as you have the money. The 3.8 sounds better, it's more power from the factory. I didn't want to have to touch the car for the first year that I owned it, and 350 is perfect for me right now. I'm just now getting used to learning how the car handles with traction control and stability control off, and I absolutely love it. However, I did pay a premium. I got the car for around $18,000 out the door. Of course, there's dealership fees and everything else, so it ended up costing a little bit more than that. And for that kind of money, I could have gotten a 2.0T, gotten a bigger turbo, and gotten exactly the same power I have now. It would have been a lot more fun and a bigger learning experience, but I'm kind of stuck there. Want to be stuck at 350, just like all the WRXs and the BRZs. So I decided to fork up the extra cash and get the 3.8, and it was well worth it. Once again, if it's a matter of just saving for a little bit longer, and hunting a little bit harder, I definitely recommend you go for the 3.8. However, the 2.0T is also a great first sports coupe as well. I highly recommend you go test drive one and try it out for yourself. I also recommend you test drive the 3.8 just to make sure that you really don't want to save the little bit extra for it. Last but not least, I know I'm going to need to address this. I went with an automatic. That is simply because of the reliability issues and the poor response from the manuals. I just didn't want to have to deal with that. Again, I wanted this thing to be as reliable as possible. And if I do end up dumping a bunch of money into it, I'll manual swap it anyway, turn it into an absolute drift monster. That's the goal. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and there's going to be more content on the Genesis Coupe coming soon. I want to get an exhaust on it as soon as possible. I will definitely make a video on that. I'm also going to some car meets around Columbus soon. I'm going to make videos on those, and hope you guys tune in and enjoy them. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.